All right. Hi, everyone. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the social learning theory paper. So the paper for this course, Psych 235. You can find this information both in the content and in the assignments, okay, at least for the body of the paper. The additional pieces I'll talk about at the very end, some additional attachments and things are found only in the content. So just make sure you look at the SLT paper section within the content here on D2L. If you're watching this video, more than likely you found it, which is why you're watching this video. So anyway, what I'm going to do is kind of just walk through it. It's a big paper, right? It's got a lot of pieces to it. So I just want to make sure kind of to walk through it and make sure you all are getting all the pieces that are supposed to be there. So to start with, this whole paper is going to be looking at the social learning theory, which is Albert Bandura's theory of human development. We've been looking at that throughout the semester, right? As you're looking at the different chapters and things, you should be stumbling on those things, those pieces that he had, including the Bobo doll experiment and all those kinds of things. Anyway, so the paper itself is 200 points total, with 3 sections. 2 of them worth 50 points approximately, and then 1 being worth 100 points. The 100-point one, though, is actually broken into 2 additional sections, so technically we have 4 sections-ish, okay? Totaling a total of 200 points. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Okay. For this paper, you need at least 2 outside sources. So these sources need to be something above and beyond your textbook. You can include your textbook. So if you really wanted to use your textbook for some reason, you're like, maybe there's a piece out of this perfect, and you're like, oh, I just really want that. You can use that, but that does not count toward the 2 additional sources required. I would recommend using more than 2 sources, but the minimum is 2 sources. I've had some people that use like 20. That might be a little overkill, but you can play that one by ear to some extent, right? The only reason I recommend more than 2 is because typically you will need more than 2 to really to cover all the bases that this paper is going to be going over. With that, also make sure that you are citing your sources. I'm going to say this several times because I want to make sure that it's heard, because this is always something that one person or 2 people or multiple people don't do. Cite your sources both in the text, meaning when you use someone else's thought, you give credit to them in your writing, right? In the middle of it, there's APA formatting. I'll talk about that in a minute. And on your final reference sheet, okay, which basically is the more complex, more in-depth where you got that information from. You need both of those things, okay? Also, on this paper, you're going to need a cover sheet, an APA formatted cover sheet. Basically, just kind of gives the basic class information. You can see that when you see the example paper given below. But it does not require a abstract. APA formatted papers oftentimes are going to use an abstract. If you want to include one, you can, but it's not required. What an abstract is essentially a smaller version of what to expect in the greater body of the paper. Super useful when you're doing your research, right? You're looking at resources and things through the library databases and things through different journals. It's like a 20 or 30 page article, and it gives you basically a paragraph, maybe 2, that says this is what the paper's talking about, and you can kind of get a feel for if it's worth your time or not. Okay, I don't require them. Like I said, if you want to practice, you can throw one in. Just be aware that it does not get graded one way or the other, and it does not count as part of the body of the paper. Okay, so you do not need an abstract. You can do it if you would like to try. Okay, hopefully that answers that. Here we go. So part 1, it's worth 50 points. This is where you're going to basically just be talking about what is social learning theory. Okay, so you're going to fully explain the history, the background, how did he get to it, the who, what, when, where, why of it all. Describe the 4 key components of Bandura's social learning theory. If you look that up, the 4 key components or mediational processes of social learning theory, you will find a ton of information on that. So just, if you have questions on that, you can reach out. But I'm going to have you kind of look for those initially. Okay. Once you've done that, finally, and then, tell me a little bit about it. Give me some details on it. And then finally, list and describe at least 2 other theories or concepts that are associated or related to social learning theory. So remember, Albert Bandura comes out of behaviorism, and so it's very closely related to that, but there are some key differences. But you can also look at like classical conditioning, which are also connected to operant conditioning, law and effect, or law of effect. I'm sorry, modeling. All those kinds of things are going to be aspects of like side research, but it very much flows along the line. So you can kind of do a compare and contrast of the two. Okay. So describe the differences or similarities between those things, social learning theory, and the two theories that you choose. You can just look around all over the place. This is where I'm saying you're probably going to need more than two sources. But again, you can look all over the place for any of those things. Those are just some suggestions. There are some other ones out there. If you find them and you're like, I'm not sure if I should use this or not, you can always email me and ask me the question. Okay. Again, be sure to cite your sources within the text as well as on the final page. Okay. So this is the point breakdown for that. A history, background, and premise is worth 10 points. 4 components of social learning theory are worth 10 points. Related theories and concepts is worth 20 points, 10 for each of the different theories. And then the APA citations within the text are worth 10 points. Okay. Quick note on that too. If you don't cite your sources, and this is the big thing, if you don't cite your sources at all in the paper, it can actually be considered plagiarism, meaning that it will result in a 0 on the paper and possibly a fail in the class. So just be aware of that. Make sure you cite your sources. Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to harp on that, but that's something that a lot of people forget, and it's a very, very important part of academics. Okay. Part 2. 100 points total. Again, this is part 2 is the part that's actually broken into 2 different groups, which is, so you have 50 points for one, 50 points for the other. You're going to choose 2 events from this list that I've given you. If you want to explore something else that's not on this list, feel free to reach out to me and ask if I think that would be acceptable. If it is, I'll let you know, and then you can use that instead. But these are some solid ones that there is a lot of research done on, so it's relatively easy to find information on them. So you're going to choose 2 and show how each event is an example of social learning. So you got bullying, parenting, drug, alcohol. Okay, you can see the list there. I'm going to say, just for ease here, I'm going to say we're choosing bullying and parenting since they're to the top. Morality, you can choose, each of those things that fall underneath morality are individual things. So you could technically choose like manners and charity work. Anyway, okay. But those fall underneath the category of morality. For this example, though, we're doing bullying and parenting. So my first topic is bullying. I'm going to explain and define each that event. Okay. I'll give 2 examples of bullying to make sure. Basically, this is showing me that you understand what the heck is you're talking about. Okay. And then using the 4 key components, mediational processes and observational learning, you're going to explain how this basically this social interaction, this choice of bullying is learned through social learning theory. Okay, you're going to do all that, then you're going to go and do parenting if you're doing those 2. Okay, so you're going to give 2 examples of parenting, and then you're going to give the 4 key components in relation to parenting, and then how that might be connected. The event can be connected to social learning theory. Okay, again, cite your sources, just as always. So this one, 10 points for the event, explanation of it. 10 points for the 2 examples of each event. So 5 points per example, basically. Okay. And then how each event can be ascribed to social learning theory is going to be worth 25 points. That's the biggest portion there. APA citations within the text, 5 points. Again, if you don't have any of them in there, potentially 0. Okay. But you need to, if you take a swing at it and you just don't do it quite right, you might lose some points. But anyway. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. And times 2, so you get 100. So part 3, this one's worth 30 points. Part 3 is where basically you take all this information about social learning theory and you apply it to yourself. So you're going to identify a personal experience in your own life where you experience social learning theory. Okay. There's lots of different things where this potentially could be a thing. It could be anything from something you watched, a time, an event that occurred in your past. It could be something that occurs now, and how it might be connected to what you experienced in the past. All of those things can be utilized. So if you have questions on that one, if you're like, I'm not sure if this actually would work or not, send me a message. Let me know what the subject is, and I can let you know if it might be a good one or not. Okay. But if you're like, yeah, this is really solid, good to go. Okay. So describe the event fully, completely, and logically. Remember, I have no clue what happened to you in the past. So you need to give me the details, at least for the most part, right? Um, you don't need to necessarily go into your whole life story, but you need to give me enough to where I understand what it was and how it's affecting you, or how it affected you at that time. And then justify why your own experience is a true example of social learning theory using the 4 mediational processes. So 10 points for the description, and then 20 points for the justification. So again, this is kind of putting all this theory into real life practice is what this section of the paper is about. The final 20 points that are available to you are connected to your grammar and spelling, your formatting, your and correct number of references, all that kind of stuff. Okay, and that's 200 points. The length of the paper is going to be 5 to 8 pages, so this is a longer paper. I usually do it where there's just I didn't have any length requirements. But what I found is that anyone who turned in a paper less than 5 pages, it typically didn't include all of the elements. So make sure you do 5 to 8 pages. Okay. I like to put the cap on 8 because I had one student that turned in like a 20-something page paper. It was an excellent paper, way too long though, right? Like for this level of class, that's above and beyond what's expected of you. So 5 to 8 pages is going to be a good amount. You should be able to cover all of the information within this relatively easily within that framework. If you are pages below, okay, so for every page missing, let's say you turn in a 4-page paper, in that case you will lose 10%. So 20 points of the paper will be lost for every page below that, plus the points that are missed due to the inferiority of the paper or whatever. For above, so if you turn in 9 pages, full pages, in that case, it would be 5 points off for each additional page. Okay, just make sure you keep it in there. Now, if it's like 7 and 4/5 of a page, something like that, I generally wouldn't ding you on that one. But if it's like 7 and a very small amount at the top, that's 7 pages basically. So you'd lose points on that one. And again, if you have like 8 pages and a little bit, I might be able to kind of fudge that one. But if it rolls on for like a half a page or something, you're moving into those grounds there. So again, 10% lost for every page short, 5 points off. So that'd be 2.5% off for every additional page. Okay, you're like, it might be worth it, but again, you better to get to full points when it's all said and done. Okay, again, cite your sources. I give you some tools here at the bottom. In here, I also give you some tools below the paper description, so you can access those. I'll talk about those in just a second. And then I give you a checklist to make sure that you have everything that's needed. So on this, you're going to need a title page, right? History of social learning theory, the premise and background of it, the 4 components of social learning theory, 2 related theories or concepts, explanation of event 1, 2 examples of event 1, how event 1 is an example of social learning theory, same stuff for event 2, description of personal experience, justification of experience as a social learning theory, an overall summary. Just like every paper, you should end with a paragraph or so summarizing all of your thoughts, all of your in-text citations, and a separate reference page. Okay. Below the paper description in the content, I also provide links to Purdue OWL's APA style introduction, which is their APA. This is Purdue University's online writing labs APA formatting thing. So if you have questions on like how do I cite this and what it should look like and all those kinds of things, you can look there, and that'll give you help with that. I also give you an APA sample paper through Purdue OWL. They actually give you 2 examples. One is a student example, and one is a professional example. Don't worry about the professional example, just worry about the student one. Okay. And then, I think I mentioned this in my introduction video, but just in case, I also include Grammarly on here, just in case. I am a terrible speller, and my grammar doesn't work all that great. So, I find it to be very useful. It's free if you download it through Firefox, Firefox, Google Chrome, or Safari. That's all I know. Okay, so if you get it through there, they're free, and you can basically check your work. Make sure you're checking your work. It's a bummer when you turn in an amazing paper, but your spelling stinks, and I had to knock points for that. Okay. So yeah, it helps with just making sure you're clear and all that kind of stuff. I think that's everything about that. If you have questions above and beyond what I just covered, make sure that you reach out to me, ask me in the, send me a message, ask me in the discussions, and I will do my best to get back to you right away. All right. Good luck with everything. Hope the paper goes well, and I look forward